No one could have imagined that a routine case of marital infidelity in a quiet Memphis neighborhood would lead to a tragedy that would rock the hospital's maternity ward and leave lifelong scars. Mackenzie Grant lay on the sofa in her living room, staring at the ceiling and counting the cracks in the whitewash. 25 years, 5 of them married to Derek, and she felt as if she were stuck in a rut of everyday life. Working as a nurse at a local clinic, a husband who was a mechanic and came home tired and silent, the same conversations about paying bills and repairing the roof. Life flowed steadily and predictably, like a river in a drought. The doorbell interrupted her thoughts. Mackenzie knew who it was, and her heart beat faster. Standing on the doorstep was Kevin Hughes, tall, broad-shouldered, with a charming smile that made you forget everything else in the world. He was 27 years old and worked as a bartender at the Blue Moon nightclub, where they had met 3 months ago when Mackenzie came to celebrate a colleague's birthday. "Hello, beautiful," Kevin said, entering the house and pulling her toward him. "Derek won't be back for another 2 hours," Mackenzie whispered, feeling a familiar excitement. They walked into the bedroom and Mackenzie paused for a moment at the family photo on the dresser. In the picture, she and Derek were smiling on their wedding day, young and full of hope. But now that photo seemed like a picture from someone else's life. Kevin was the complete opposite of her husband. Where Derek was serious and reserved, Kevin knew how to laugh and tell stories. He listened to her, was interested in her thoughts, and made her feel desired. With him, she remembered what it meant to be alive. They were lying in bed when Mackenzie heard the sound of keys in the front door lock. Her blood ran cold. "It's Derek," she whispered, grabbing the sheet. Kevin jumped up, pulling on his jeans, but it was too late. The bedroom door swung open and Derek Grant appeared in the doorway. 29 years old, stocky, with the calloused hands of a laborer, and now a face contorted with rage. "What's going on here?" His voice was quiet, but threatening. Mackenzie tried to say something, but the words stuck in her throat. Kevin, still fastening his belt, stepped forward. "Listen, man, let's talk this out." Derek didn't let him finish. His fist landed squarely on Kevin's jaw, and Kevin staggered, his back hitting the wall. Mackenzie screamed, wrapping herself in the sheet. 5 years, Derek yelled, landing another punch on Kevin's ribs. "I worked for you for 5 years. I bought you everything you wanted." Kevin tried to defend himself, but Derek was stronger, and his rage gave him extra strength. He grabbed Kevin by the shirt and threw him to the floor. "Derek, stop!" Mackenzie screamed, but her husband didn't seem to hear her. Kevin, holding his split lip, managed to get up and back toward the door. "I didn't want it to turn out this way," he managed to say. "Get out of my house," Derek growled. "And if I see you near my wife, I'll kill you." Kevin quickly picked up his shirt and rushed out of the room. Mackenzie heard the front door slam. Derek turned to his wife. His face was red with anger, and his eyes were filled with pain. "How long?" he asked hoarsely. Mackenzie sat on the bed, trembling all over. She knew that the moment of truth had come. 3 months, she whispered. Derek was as if he had been struck. He sank into a chair, covering his face with his hands. "Why?" His voice sounded broken. "What did I do wrong?" Mackenzie felt her insides churning. Part of her wanted to go to her husband, hug him, ask for forgiveness. But another part, the part that Kevin had awakened, told her the truth. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said quietly. "But you didn't do anything right either. We're like strangers, Derek. We live in the same house, but we don't live together. I was working for us, for our future. You were working, and I was dying of boredom and loneliness." Derek raised his head, and Mackenzie saw not only pain in his eyes, but something darker, rage that had not subsided, but rather flared up. "So it's my fault?" he asked slowly. "Is it my fault that you're a whore?" The slap sounded like a gunshot. Mackenzie recoiled, clutching her burning cheek. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. How am I supposed to talk to a woman who fucks the bartender in our bed?" Mackenzie stood up and began to get dressed. Her hands were shaking, but her resolve grew stronger with every passing second. "I'm leaving," she said. "You're not going anywhere. You're my wife, not anymore." She walked over to the closet and began packing her things into a bag. Derek watched, breathing heavily. "If you leave, don't come back," he finally said. Mackenzie stopped, holding a dress in her hands. "You know what?" She turned to her husband. "I'm actually glad you caught us. I'm glad everything came out. I'm filing for divorce." Derek's face turned to stone. He watched silently as his wife gathered her things, and when she headed for the door, he blocked her way. "I won't let you go to that bastard." "Move aside, Derek." "No." Mackenzie tried to get around him, but he grabbed her arm. She pulled away with such force that he stumbled back. "You can't stop me," she said as she left the house. Mackenzie got into her old Honda and drove to her friend's house. Chanel Williams lived in a small apartment on the other side of town. 26 years old, an elementary school teacher, she was the only person Mackenzie could trust. Chanel opened the door in her bathrobe, a cup of tea in her hand. "Kenzie?" What happened? She immediately noticed the red mark on her friend's cheek and the bag in her hand. "Can I stay the night?" Mackenzie asked, her voice trembling. "Of course, come in." Over tea, Mackenzie told her everything. Chanel listened silently, only occasionally shaking her head. "Did he hit you?" she finally asked. "Yes, but that's not the point. The point is, I can't live like this anymore." "And this Kevin, is he serious about you?" "I don't know," Mackenzie admitted. "But with him, I feel alive." Mackenzie lived with Chanel for 2 weeks. She went to work as if nothing had happened, but in the evenings she met with Kevin. They walked in the park, had dinner in cafes, and talked about the future. Kevin promised that they would be together, that he would find a better job, that they would start a real family. One day, Mackenzie realized she was late. At first, she didn't think much of it. Stress could be the cause. But when she was a week late, she bought a test. 2 lines. Pregnant. Mackenzie sat in Chanel's bathroom staring at the test, her mind in complete chaos. She quickly calculated the dates and realized the baby was Kevin's. She had had almost no intimacy with Derek in the last month. That evening, she met Kevin at their usual cafe. "I have news," she said when they ordered coffee. Kevin took her hand. "Good news?" "I'm pregnant." With your child, Kevin froze, the cup halfway to his mouth. Then he slowly put it down on the saucer. "Are you sure?" "Yes. And I want to keep the baby." Kevin was silent for a few seconds, then smiled the very smile that had won Mackenzie over from the first time they met. "Then we'll be together. Officially. I'll find a better job. We'll get a bigger apartment. We'll create the family we've always dreamed of." Mackenzie felt happiness fill her from within. Finally, her life had meaning. But their happiness did not last long. In the evening, when Mackenzie returned to Chanel's, her friend greeted her with a worried look on her face. "Derek was here," she said. "He waited for you for 2 hours." "What did he want?" "To talk. He looked strange. He said he missed you, that he was ready to forgive everything." Mackenzie felt a chill in her chest. She had hoped that Derek had come to terms with their breakup. At that moment, there was a knock at the door. Chanel looked through the peephole and sighed. "It's him." Mackenzie nodded. She had to put an end to this once and for all. Derek stood on the doorstep with a bouquet of flowers. He looked better than he had 2 weeks ago. He had shaved and was wearing a clean shirt, but his eyes remained somehow lifeless. "Hi, Kenzie. What do you want, Derek?" "To talk." 5 minutes, Mackenzie exchanged glances with Chanel and nodded. They went out onto the landing. "I miss you," Derek said, holding out the flowers. "The house is empty without you." "I've even forgotten how to cook." Mackenzie didn't take the bouquet. "Derek, I'm ready to forgive you," he interrupted. "We'll forget everything. We'll live like before. Even better. I'll change, I promise." It's too late. Why? Because of that bartender. He'll dump you as soon as he finds someone younger. Mackenzie sighed. Derek didn't understand that it wasn't just about Kevin. I'm pregnant, she said quietly. Derek froze. The flowers fell from his hands and scattered across the floor. What? I'm pregnant with Kevin's child. We're going to raise the child together. Mackenzie remembered what happened next, as if it were in slow motion. Derek's face contorted with rage, his hand rose and came down hard on her cheek. The blow was so strong that Mackenzie fell, hitting her back against the wall. You whore! Derek yelled. You're carrying a bastard and you have the nerve to tell me about it. The apartment door flew open and Chanel ran out. What's going on? Kenzie. She helped her friend up and immediately grabbed the phone. I'm calling the police. Don't. Derek growled, but Chanel was already dialing the number. Hello? I need the police. A man beat up a pregnant woman. Derek looked at Mackenzie again, and his gaze was filled with cold hatred. This isn't over, he said quietly, and walked to the stairs. Mackenzie sat on the floor, holding her cheek and trembling. Chanel hugged her, stroking her head. It'll be okay, she whispered. It'll be okay. But they both knew this was only the beginning. Half an hour later, Kevin arrived. When he saw the bruise on Mackenzie's face, he turned pale. That lunatic, I'll kill him! No! Mackenzie grabbed his arm. Just get me out of here! Please. Kevin helped her pack her things, and Chanel walked them to the car. Be careful, she said goodbye. That man is dangerous. As they drove to Kevin's house, Mackenzie looked out the window at the night streets of Memphis and thought about how her old life was over. The future was unknown, but she had a man who loved her by her side, and inside her, their future together was growing. She didn't yet know the price she would have to pay for this happiness. Mackenzie woke up in Kevin's one-room apartment to the sound of a dripping faucet in the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the old curtains, illuminating the modest furnishings, the worn sofa they slept on, a small TV on a wooden nightstand, and a stack of books in the corner. The bruise on her cheek ached, reminding her of yesterday's events. But Kevin was sleeping next to her, and that made her feel safe. Kevin worked the night shift at the club, so he woke up late. Mackenzie got up quietly so as not to wake him and went to take a shower. The hot water washed away the remnants of her fear, but her thoughts still returned to Derek. What was he doing now? Would he ever forgive them? And most importantly, would he leave them alone? Her thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of the phone. The screen lit up with her mother's name, Gloria Mitchell. Mackenzie hesitated for a second, then answered. Mom? Kenzie, honey? Chanel told me everything. How are you feeling? Did that bastard hit you? Her mother's voice sounded concerned, but there was no condemnation in it, which Mackenzie had feared. I'm fine, Mom. It's just, it all happened so fast. Listen to me carefully, sweetheart. What Derek did was wrong. No one has the right to raise a hand to a woman, especially a pregnant woman. You did the right thing by leaving him. Mackenzie felt tears welling up in her eyes. For the past few weeks, she had been afraid that her mother would blame her for destroying the marriage. But I cheated on him, Mom. I destroyed the family. The family was broken before you cheated, Kenzie. I saw how you faded away beside him these last few years. You became silent, withdrawn. That's not the girl I raised. Is this Kevin a good man? Mackenzie looked at the sleeping man. Even in his sleep, his face was kind. Yes, Mom. He cares about me. He promised we'd start a family. Then I support your decision. When the baby is born, I'll help you. I have my vacation savings, and I'm ready to spend it on my grandson or granddaughter. After talking to her mother, Mackenzie felt more confident. She made breakfast and woke Kevin with a kiss. Good morning, beautiful, he mumbled, hugging her. How did you sleep? Good, my mom called. She supports us. Kevin sat up in bed, running his hand through his hair. That's great. What about work? Do you need to take sick leave after yesterday? No, I'll be fine. I need some normalcy right now. Her colleagues at the clinic noticed the bruise, but Mackenzie said she had fallen at home. Lying was difficult, but explaining the situation to everyone was even harder. Dr. Richardson, the clinic's chief physician, an elderly man with kind eyes, took her aside after her shift. Mackenzie, I've been working in medicine for 30 years. Bruises like that don't come from a fall. If you need help. Thank you, Dr. Richardson. I've already dealt with the problem. He nodded without insisting, but put his hand on her shoulder. If you need anything, let me know. And remember, pregnant women need to take special care of themselves. That evening, Mackenzie returned to Kevin in high spirits. He greeted her with a bouquet of inexpensive chrysanthemums and dinner from a Chinese takeout restaurant. How's work? He asked, kissing her. Fine. Dr. Richardson noticed the bruise but didn't ask any questions. How was your day? I was looking for extra work. I think I'll be working as a mover on the weekends. We'll need the money for the baby. Mackenzie was touched. Kevin was really trying for their future. They had dinner and discussed their plans. Kevin suggested they start looking for a bigger apartment, and Mackenzie told him about her mother's offer to help with the baby. Everything seemed to be falling into place when, around 11 o'clock, there was a loud knock at the door. More accurately, it wasn't a knock, it was a pounding. "Open up, you bastard!" came a familiar voice from behind the door. Mackenzie froze. Derek had found them. "I know you're in there with my wife. Come out like a man." Kevin got up from the sofa, his face serious. "Stay here," he said to Mackenzie. "No, don't open it. He might be drunk. Open the door!" Derek's roar grew louder. Neighbors were already starting to peek out of their apartments. Kevin realized the situation was getting out of control. "Derek," he shouted through the door, "go away." "The police are on their way." "There are no police, liar. Open the door or I'll break it down." The next second, there was a deafening thud as Derek tried to kick the door down. The old door creaked but held. Mackenzie was trembling with fear. She had seen Derek angry before, but never this enraged. "Kenzie," he yelled, "come out. I know you're in there. You think you can hide from me? Carry the bastard child of that jerk?" Kevin grabbed the phone and actually called the police. But in a small town, it could take a long time for a patrol car to arrive. Derek continued to pound on the door and shout threats. Then it went quiet. Kevin and Mackenzie froze, listening. Suddenly, there was the sound of breaking glass. Derek had gone around the house and smashed the bedroom window. Mackenzie screamed when she saw him climb in, cutting his hand on the shards. "Well, well, well," Derek said, breathing heavily. He was in his work clothes, his face red with rage and alcohol. "My unfaithful wife and her lover." Kevin shielded Mackenzie with his body. "Get out of my house, Derek." "Now, your house?" Derek laughed maliciously. "She's my wife in your house." "She belongs to me." "I'm not a thing," Mackenzie shouted from behind Kevin, "and I don't belong to you." "Shut up, you whore," Derek barked. "You're coming home and having an abortion, and you'll thank me for forgiving you never." Mackenzie stepped out from behind Kevin. "I won't kill my baby. Not yours, this bastard's." Derek pointed at Kevin. "Enough!" Kevin stepped forward. "You're drunk. You're breaking into someone else's house, threatening a pregnant woman. Get out of here before I hurt you." Derek looked at Kevin with contempt. "You? Me? You're just a bartender, a loser. What can you do to me?" "Let's find out." Kevin was taller and younger, but Derek had worked physically his whole life and was stronger. When they grappled, the apartment turned into a battlefield. They knocked over a chair, broke a lamp, and crashed into the wall. Mackenzie screamed for them to stop, but the men didn't hear her. Derek punched Kevin in the stomach, and Kevin doubled over, but managed to respond with an uppercut to the jaw. "I'll kill you!" Derek growled, trying to choke Kevin. "And then I'll kill her!" "Better dead than with you." At that moment, Mackenzie realized that Derek was truly capable of murder. In his eyes was not just rage, There was a willingness to commit any act of violence. Kevin managed to push Derek away and grabbed a broken chair leg. "Don't come any closer," he warned, waving his makeshift club. Derek wiped the blood from his lips and smiled. "You think that's going to stop me? I killed people in Afghanistan." Mackenzie knew Derek had served in the army, but he never talked about the war. Now she understood why. Derek slowly approached Kevin, who was backing away, shielding Mackenzie. It seemed like something terrible was about to happen. Then the front door flew open. "What the hell is going on here?" Kevin's neighbor, Mr. Johnson, an elderly black man with a hunting rifle in his hands, stood in the doorway. All three froze. "Mr. Johnson," Kevin exhaled. "Kevin, boy, what kind of circus is this?" The whole street is up in arms. Derek turned to the old man, showing no fear. "It's a family matter, Grandpa." "Stay out of it." Mr. Johnson slowly raised his rifle. "A family matter?" Breaking in through a window, smashing furniture, yelling at a pregnant woman. "That's not a family matter, kid. That's called hooliganism." "That woman is my wife." "Ex-wife," Mackenzie corrected. "Now get out of here," Mr. Johnson said calmly but firmly. "Quickly and quietly. Otherwise, I'll shoot you like a rabid dog, and no court will convict me. I have the right to protect my neighbors." Derek stared at the old man for a few seconds, assessing the situation. Then his gaze shifted to Mackenzie. "You think you can run away from me?" he asked quietly, his voice threatening. "You think this old man will guard you forever? I'll find you anywhere, and when I find you, I'll kill all three of you. You, that bastard, and the puppy you're carrying." "Enough talk." Mr. Johnson cocked the hammer. "Leave immediately." Derek walked over to the broken window he had climbed through. "See you, Kenzie." He said goodbye and climbed out. They heard his car start and drive away. Mr. Johnson lowered his rifle and looked at the ransacked apartment. "You need to call the police and file a report. This guy is dangerous." "Thank you, Mr. Johnson," Kevin said. "You saved our lives." "You're welcome, kid. But listen to me carefully. He'll be back. People like that always come back. You either need to defend yourself seriously or get out of here." When the old man left, Kevin and Mackenzie sat down among the broken furniture. Mackenzie was trembling, and Kevin held her hand. "He'll kill us," she whispered. "Did you see his eyes?" "He really will kill us." "He won't," Kevin said, but his voice was uncertain. "We'll think of something." The police arrived an hour later. 2 officers inspected the apartment, photographed the broken window, and took statements. The senior officer, Sergeant McClure, was serious. "Death threats, burglary, assault, these are serious charges. We'll issue an arrest warrant, but first we have to find him." "What should we do in the meantime?" Kevin asked. "I recommend that you temporarily move in with relatives or friends. Far away from here. This guy clearly has problems controlling his aggression." They didn't sleep that night. Kevin boarded up the window, but they both knew it wouldn't stop Derek if he decided to come back. At breakfast the next morning, Kevin said, "We have to leave town." "Where to?" "I have an aunt in Tennessee. Aunt Ruby. She lives in a small town called Clarksville, not far from Nashville. She'll take us in until we get back on our feet." Mackenzie hesitated. "But I have a job. My mom is here." "Kenzie, listen. After yesterday, I realize this lunatic won't stop. He'll keep coming after us until he kills you or drives you back to him, and I won't let either of those things happen." Mackenzie knew he was right. Derek wasn't just jealous. He was obsessed. "Okay," she said finally. "Talk to Aunt Ruby." Kevin called Aunt Ruby that same day. Ruby Hughes, 59, was Kevin's father's sister. Widowed 10 years ago, she lived alone in her own house on a small pension. When Kevin explained the situation, she agreed without hesitation to take them in. "Of course, my boy," she said. "The house is big, and I'm alone. It will be even more fun with you here. And a pregnant woman needs to be looked after." They spent a week preparing for the move. Mackenzie quit her job, explaining the situation to Dr. Richardson. He was understanding and gave her an excellent recommendation. "If you need a job in Tennessee, call me. I have some doctor friends in Nashville." Mother Gloria took the news of the move calmly. "Better far away and safe than close by and afraid," she said. "I'll come see you when the baby is born." Chanel helped pack and cried, "I'll miss you." "Promise you'll call every day, I promise." Mackenzie hugged her friend. "You're the best friend in the world." On the day of departure, they loaded their belongings into Kevin's old pickup truck. As they drove out of Memphis, Mackenzie turned and looked at the city where she was born and raised. She didn't know if she would ever see it again. The drive to Clarksville took 4 hours. Kevin talked about his Aunt Ruby and how he spent his summers with her as a child. Mackenzie listened and stroked her belly, where their baby was growing. Clarksville turned out to be a quiet town with a population of about 20,000. Aunt Ruby's house was on the outskirts, in a neighborhood of old wooden houses with porches and gardens. Ruby Hughes met them on the porch. She was a short, plump woman with gray hair pulled back in a bun and kind eyes. She hugged Kevin, then Mackenzie. "Welcome home, kids," she said. "Kevin, you've lost weight, and you, dear," she patted Mackenzie's belly, "are carrying my grandnephew or grandniece. It's a great honor for an old woman." The house was cozy and clean inside. Old furniture, family photos on the walls, the smell of cookies and coffee. Ruby took them upstairs to a large, bright room overlooking the garden. "This will be your room. And when the baby is born, we'll put a crib in here." That evening at dinner, Aunt Ruby asked about their plans. Kevin said he would look for a job, and Mackenzie said she wanted to find a position at the local hospital after giving birth. "Don't rush," Ruby said. "First, let's have a healthy baby. Then we'll find a job." The first few weeks in Clarksville were uneventful. Kevin got a job as a bartender at a local restaurant, and Mackenzie helped Aunt Ruby around the house and prepared for motherhood. They made an appointment with a local doctor, Dr. Patel, who was overseeing the pregnancy. "Everything is going well," he said at her next checkup. "The baby is developing normally. The estimated due date is mid-April." Mackenzie felt happy for the first time in a long time. Derek seemed like part of another life, a bad dream. Here, at Aunt Ruby's house, she was safe. Kevin was a caring partner. He massaged her back when her lower back hurt, made herbal tea for her nausea, and read books on parenting. In the evenings, they walked the quiet streets of Clarksville, planning for the future. "What will we name the baby?" he asked one day, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "If it's a boy, Michael, after my grandfather. If it's a girl, Emma." "Beautiful names." Kevin kissed her on the temple. "Michael or Emma Hughes." Mackenzie smiled. Hughes. She already thought of herself as the future Mrs. Hughes. Aunt Ruby loved preparing for the baby's arrival. She knitted booties and hats, bought toys, and set up a nursery in their room. Mackenzie felt like part of a real family. "You know," Ruby said one day as they sorted through baby clothes, "I always dreamed of having grandchildren. But my son died in Iraq, and I had no other children. You and Kevin are giving me a second chance to feel like a grandmother." Mackenzie hugged the elderly woman, feeling warmth and gratitude. Months passed. Her belly grew, and the baby kicked actively. The ultrasound revealed that it would be a boy. "Michael," Kevin said, looking at the screen. "Our son, Michael." Mackenzie cried with happiness. They set up the nursery, painted the walls blue, put in the crib that Aunt Ruby had given them, and hung a mobile with toys. Kevin assembled the changing table, and Mackenzie folded the tiny clothes into the dresser. By the beginning of April, everything was ready. Mackenzie attended prenatal classes at the local hospital, learned breathing techniques, and prepared for childbirth. Kevin attended the classes with her, learning how to be supportive during labor. "We'll meet our baby soon," he said, talking to Mackenzie's belly. "Daddy is waiting for you." Derek didn't show up or call. Mackenzie almost forgot about him, focusing on her impending motherhood. Sometimes, in moments of silence, She remembered his threats, but she immediately pushed the disturbing thoughts away. "He won't find us," Kevin said. "We're in a different state. We have a new life. Everything will be fine." And Mackenzie believed him. She believed that the worst was behind her, and that only happiness with the man she loved and her long-awaited child lay ahead. April 16th began as a normal spring day in Clarksville. Mackenzie woke up to the first rays of sunlight streaming through Aunt Ruby's lace curtains. The 39th week of pregnancy was difficult. Her belly was huge, her back ached constantly, and at night the baby kicked so actively that it was almost impossible to sleep. Kevin was already up and making breakfast downstairs. The smell of bacon and coffee wafted up the stairs, but instead of feeling hungry, Mackenzie felt slightly nauseous. She sat up slowly in bed, holding her belly, and felt a strange heaviness in her lower back. "Well, baby," she whispered, stroking her rounded belly. "Are you ready to meet Mom and Dad?" The baby responded with a strong kick right under her ribs, making Mackenzie gasp. Downstairs, Aunt Ruby was already bustling about in the kitchen, humming an old song. At 59, she was a remarkably energetic woman, and the last few months had been a real treat for her. She loved taking care of Mackenzie, cooking special meals for the pregnant woman, and telling stories about raising Kevin as a child. "Good morning, sunshine," she greeted Mackenzie when she came down for breakfast. "How did you sleep? Did the baby give you any trouble?" "He played soccer all night," Mackenzie complained, sitting down at the table next to Kevin. Kevin kissed her on the cheek and put his hand on her belly. "Maybe he just wants to be born and meet us?" "Dr. Patel said the birth could start any minute," Aunt Ruby said, placing a bowl of oatmeal in front of Mackenzie. "Are you ready?" "The bag for the hospital has been packed for 2 weeks," Kevin replied. "All the documents are in place, the car is fueled up. We're ready." The day passed quietly. Kevin worked the day shift at the restaurant, and Mackenzie helped Aunt Ruby in the garden, planting spring flowers. Physical activity was beneficial in the last weeks of pregnancy, but by evening, Mackenzie felt very tired. After dinner, they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Kevin read a book about raising newborns, while Mackenzie knitted the last details of a set for the baby. Aunt Ruby dozed in a rocking chair, covered with a blanket. "You know," Kevin said, putting down his book, "I never thought I'd be so nervous about the baby's arrival. On the one hand, I can't wait to meet him. On the other, I'm afraid I won't be able to handle being a father." "You'll be fine," Mackenzie smiled. "You already take better care of us than—" She fell silent, not wanting to remember Derek at such a peaceful moment. "I'll be the best father I can be," Kevin promised. "Our son will never feel unwanted or unloved." Around 10:30 in the evening, Mackenzie felt the first contraction. At first, she thought it was just normal back pain, but then she realized it was something else. A wave of pain swept through her stomach, forcing her to double over. "Kevin," she called softly. "What's wrong?" He immediately put down his book and turned to her. "I think it's starting." The next contraction came 20 minutes later, then 15 minutes later. By midnight, the interval had shortened to 10 minutes, and it was clear that labor was indeed beginning. Aunt Ruby woke up from the commotion and immediately took control of the situation. "Kevin, get the bag and start the car. Mackenzie, dear, breathe the way they taught you in class. Everything will be fine." The drive to the hospital took 20 minutes. Mackenzie sat in the back seat, holding Aunt Ruby's hand and trying to breathe correctly during the contractions. Kevin nervously gripped the steering wheel, glancing in the rearview mirror. "How are you doing, honey?" he asked every few minutes. "It hurts, but it's bearable," Mackenzie replied, even though each new contraction was stronger than the last. As they approached St. Mary's Hospital, Mackenzie looked out the window and for a moment thought she saw a familiar figure at the edge of the parking lot. A tall man in dark clothes stood in the shade of the trees. Her heart skipped a beat, but the next contraction made her forget everything else. "It must have been my imagination," she muttered under her breath. "What was your imagination?" Aunt Ruby asked. "Nothing, just The pain is making it hard to concentrate. They were quickly checked in at the reception desk. Mackenzie was taken to the maternity ward on the second floor, where the midwife on duty, Mrs. Davis, examined her. "You're 4 centimeters dilated," she announced. "Everything is progressing normally. I think the baby will be born by morning." Mackenzie was placed in a delivery room, a bright room with a large bed, monitors, and all the necessary equipment. Kevin and Aunt Ruby settled into chairs next to the bed. "Would you like some water?" Kevin asked. "Not right now." Mackenzie squeezed his hand during another contraction. "Just stay here with me." The hours dragged on. The contractions grew stronger and more frequent. By 3 in the morning, Mackenzie was screaming in pain, and she was 7 centimeters dilated. Dr. Patel arrived at the hospital and took charge of the delivery. "Everything is going well," he said after examining her. "The baby is in the right position, and the heartbeat is normal. Just a little more patience, and you will meet your son." Kevin stayed by the bedside, holding Mackenzie's hand, wiping her face with a damp towel, whispering words of encouragement. Aunt Ruby prayed in the corner, fingering her rosary. "I can't do this anymore," Mackenzie cried after a particularly strong contraction. "Kevin, I can't do this." "You can do it, my love. You're the strongest woman I know. Our baby will be here soon." By 7 in the morning, the pushing stage had begun. Mackenzie pushed with all her might, following the instructions of Dr. Patel and the midwife. The pain was unbearable, but the thought that she would soon see her son gave her strength. "I can see the head," announced the doctor. "A few more pushes and we'll be done." At that moment, the door to the room opened, and a man in a white coat and surgical mask entered. Mackenzie, focused on giving birth, didn't pay any attention to him. Dr. Patel and the midwife were also busy delivering the baby. "Excuse me, who are you?" Mrs. Davis asked, raising her head. The stranger did not answer. Instead, he removed his mask and medical cap. Mackenzie gasped. It was Derek. "Hello, my dear wife," he said with a cold smile. Dr. Patel tried to stand up, but Derek punched him in the face. The elderly doctor fell, hitting his head on the medical table. The midwife screamed and ran for the door, but Derek grabbed her by the shoulder and threw her to the floor. "Get out of here," he growled. "Now!" The medical staff ran out of the room. Kevin jumped up from his chair. "What are you doing here, you bastard? How did you find us?" "You thought you could hide from me?" Derek smirked. "I hired a private investigator. I found you in a week. I was just waiting for the right moment." Mackenzie lay on the bed, unable to move. The birth wasn't over yet. The baby was halfway out and her husband was threatening to kill them all. "Derek, please," she gasped. "The birth... I need a doctor's help." "There will be no help," he said, moving closer to the bed. "Did you think you would give birth to a bastard and be happy? Did you think I would allow that?" Kevin tried to block his way, but Derek was bigger and stronger. A punch to the solar plexus bent Kevin in half, and the next punch to the jaw sent him to the floor. Aunt Ruby tried to reach the nurse call button, but Derek pushed her away so hard that the elderly woman fell into a chair. "Don't interfere, old woman, if you want to live." He took a plastic bottle of colorless liquid out of his robe pocket. Mackenzie immediately realized what it was, and horror paralyzed her. "No, Derek, no!" she screamed. "Please! You wanted to leave me?" He unscrewed the cap of the bottle. "Did you want to have a child with another man? Well, now no man will ever look at you again. I don't forgive betrayal." Mackenzie tried to roll away, but she was pinned to the bed by her labor pains. Derek poured the contents of the bottle onto her face and chest. The pain was inhuman. The acid burned her skin. Mackenzie screamed until her voice broke. "Now you can think about how you betrayed your husband," Derek said calmly, watching the woman writhing in pain. Kevin, his face covered in blood, got up from the floor and lunged at Derek. They fell, grappling, but the fight was uneven. Derek took a gun out of his pocket, a black automatic that he had learned to use in the army. "Kevin, no!" Aunt Ruby screamed. The shot rang out deafeningly. Kevin froze, then slowly sank to his knees. A red stain spread across his shirt in the chest area. "Kevin!" Mackenzie tried to reach him, but the pain from her burns was too intense. Kevin fell to the floor and didn't move. His eyes remained open, but there was no life in them. "That's it," Derek said, putting the gun away. "Now you're alone with the bastard who's about to be born. Try raising him without a father, just like you wanted." He headed for the door, but stopped and turned around. "You know what's funny, Kenzie? I forgive you. Now that you've gotten what you deserve, I forgive you for your betrayal." The door slammed behind him. Mackenzie lay on the bed, writhing in pain. Her face burned with fever, her eyes watered so much that she could hardly see. But the labor continued. The baby demanded to be born. Aunt Ruby, limping, reached the call button and pressed it several times in a row. Then she approached Mackenzie and took her hand. "Hang in there, dear. Hang in there for the baby." A minute later, the medical team rushed into the room. Dr. Patel, with a bandage on his head, immediately assessed the situation. Chemical burns to the face and chest, gunshot wound to the man, labor in progress, he quickly listed. "Call the surgeons, resuscitators, and police." Immediately. "The baby," Mackenzie croaked through the pain. "Save the baby." "We'll save you both," the doctor promised, putting on gloves. "But we need to perform a C-section immediately." The baby is in distress. The next few minutes merged into a chaos of pain, voices, and medical instruments. Mackenzie lost and regained consciousness. Through the fog of agony, she heard the cry of a newborn, the healthy, strong cry of her son. "It's a boy," one of the doctors said. "A healthy boy." Mackenzie tried to smile, but her burned facial muscles wouldn't obey her. When the pain subsided a little from the painkillers, she was able to think more clearly. Kevin was dead. The man she loved, the father of her child, had been killed. Her face was disfigured by acid. She might never look the same again. And all because of her betrayal. Because she had grown bored in her marriage and wanted excitement. At the time, it had seemed harmless. Meeting a charming bartender, new emotions, an escape from routine. But that excitement had cost Kevin his life and changed hers forever. Derek was right. It was retribution. Cruel, unfair, but retribution for a ruined marriage, for lies, for choosing the easy way out instead of working on the relationship. Now she had to raise her son alone, with a disfigured face, with the memory of the horror that happened on the day he was born. The boy would never know his father, and she would remember the price of her decisions for the rest of her life. The ward was quiet, except for the beeping of medical equipment. Aunt Ruby sat nearby, holding the sleeping baby. There were tears on her face. "What shall we name him?" she asked quietly. Mackenzie looked at her son. Tiny, defenseless, he was not to blame for what had happened. He deserved love, care, a normal life. "Michael," she whispered through the pain. "Michael Hughes." Outside the window, the sun was rising on a new day. A day that would change Mackenzie's world forever.